to the monkey. So another story in a story, and Dimna says, well, oh, what happened to the monkey, Kalila? Oh, once upon a time, said Kalila, a monkey saw a carpenter sitting on a log of wood. Now get ready, I'm preparing you for something here, and splitting it in two. He used two pegs. Each time he hammered one. He took out the other and moved it forward. Whilst he was in the middle of the job, he got up to go somewhere, and the monkey immediately squatted down on the log and sat about trying to split it. Okay, I've got to apologize for this text here, but it'll make people want to read it, unfortunately. But this is the text. It's from Arab literature. He sat with his testicles hanging through the split already made. Then he took out the peg that was stuck in the gap before hammering the other. And the result that the two pieces of wood at once sprang together, and his testicles were caught fast in the log. This is what I mean. Sometimes you get things that are so shocking out of the blue here, like, that's in the literature, this is what they're reading, about what happens to you if you stick your nose in places that they don't belong. And so this is the image that you get. This monkey is sitting on a log, and this is what happens to him. The pain was so terrific that he faints. So when the carpenter came back, he belabored the monkey soundly until the brute died. That's why they say, carpentry is no job for monkeys. Ha 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 ha. You know. So, I see you guys are not laughing, but that's because you don't have the book in front of you. But this is an entertaining book, supposed to entertain, off-color, a little bit sexual, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you see it. And it also teaches you how to behave. In other words, keep your nose out of business where it doesn't belong, and you won't get into trouble. And if you don't, you might get your you-know-what cut off. So it's a pretty down-to-earth lesson, but it's not Islamic. There's nothing Islamic in it either, is there? It's just shopkeeper mentality and courtly behavior, you know, that would be appropriate in any society. Well, this goes on like that about the king's relations with the ox and how he finally deals with the ox and so on. I'll just skip along here to another little story that's told in the middle of all these things, just to show you, give you a whiff of it, and then we'll go over to the several stories you have in that we can all read together. In the middle of all these stories, Kalila and Dimna are still talking, and so the one says to the other, "See what a fool and an idiot I have been. I confined my purpose to easing the lion's mind and neglected my own interest completely. I brought this ox to wait upon him, and now he's become his favorite creature." This is what transpired in the meantime. Obviously, they made friends with the king, and now the king likes the ox. "And I've been ousted from my previous position. The same thing happened to you as happened to the pious man in the story Kalila had come out to try him." What story? "Well, how did it fall out with him?" said Dimna. And Kalila then relates the following story. I warn you, another off-color story, but I shall read it to you because it's funny. "A pious man once received a fine garment," plus it's a little bit about the beginning of Sufism here, about ascetics and pious people and people who are going to become Sufi mystics. "A pious man once received a fine garment as a present from a king, but a thief seeing him arrayed in such splendor desired to possess the gown himself. So he set forth this plan to go and see him. 'I want to be your companion,' he told the Sufi, the saint, the ascetic, 'so that I can learn the discipline of the mystic way. I want to join your followers.' He was accordingly admitted into the good man's confidence and treated his intended victim with the utmost respect and politeness, waiting for the opportunity to come along, that is, to get his cloak. It came, and he seized the ascetic's cloak and made off with it. The saint realized, as soon as he missed his robe, that it was this previous disciple who had stolen it, and at once he set out in pursuit." Here's the saint now running after a guy who stole his robe. The question right away is, why would a saint care about a robe? But in any case, that's going to be asked later on. On the way, he encountered a pair of mountain goats that were locked in combat, butting each other so briskly that the blood ran out of them both. This guy's used to a quiet, contemplative life. He's gone out in the world to find his cloak. First thing he meets are two animals killing each other. A fox presently arrived on the scene and began greedily lapping up the gore. Whereupon, you have to admit this is entertaining, if nothing else, and it could get you through a rainy evening if you have no channels to surf on the video or whatever. Whereupon the goat, and that's what it was for, whereupon the goats simultaneously set upon him with their horns and poked him to death. This is the first thing he witnesses. The same night, the saint reached the city and sought a place where he might unlace his shoes. And while he came to the house, a loose woman, that is, a woman who applied a brothel, was then given there. He was given lodging there. The woman kept a number of girls engaged upon that business that she oversaw. Now, one of the girls whose beauty would have moved the very houris of paradise to envy, and before whose fair loveliness the sun in heaven fell down in worship, happened to have fallen in love with a most handsome youth, tall, well-spoken, amusing, and of fine physique. She therefore absolutely refused to let any other customer come near her. Well, this is a familiar thing from modern movies. The woman was so furious about the loss of income resulting from the girl's infatuation that she was ready to cast all shame aside. What's this to do with the Koran? Nothing. You see why this guy was executed for pornography, probably, or whatever. But this is the first work of our Prof. And risk everything to mend the situation. She designed to destroy the young man, and her plans were well forward by the night the aesthetic lodge with her. And look, it mixes people and animals. You know, sometimes there's animals telling stories, sometimes there's people, you know, you can't keep them all straight. Waiting her chance, she plied the fond couple with strong drink until they were both tipsy and staggered off dead to the world. When they were fast asleep, the woman poured some poison into a long reed. Now this is I'm sorry about this one, it's coming now, I warned you of it. And laying one end by the young man's backside, she placed the other in her mouth, extending to blow the poison in. But before she could do so, the sleeping youth broke wind, and all the poison that she was going to do into him spilled back into the old lady's mouth. So she dropped stone dead on the spot. All of this the ascetic, who's not out in the world, watched. He's not used to such things. The next morning, as soon as, well, this goes on like this. As soon as dawn broke, the saint delivered himself from these abominable environments and sought another lodging. There he found a shoemaker, eager to win his blessing, carried him off to his home and bade his wife take care of him, charging her to tend him well. Meanwhile, he himself departed to a friend's revel. Now the shoemaker's wife had a lover, and as soon as her husband was gone, she sent a messenger. This is not the Islamic world, you see. A barber's wife who did these errands for her to inform her paramour that her man had been invited out and to bid him come as arranged between them. The fellow in due course came along that night, but the shoemaker also returned to find himself hanging out by the doorstep. He had already had his suspicions of him before. Now he burst into the house in a rage, thrashed his wife soundly, tied her to a pillar, after which he betook himself to bed. When all the world was hushed